Hi everyone, welcome in the second episode of the BIM AI series of the Agile BIM community. So I'm very happy to be today with Harvard. I think the spelling is good. So welcome Harvard, welcome in the Agile BIM community. I'm Bilal Zedazi, architect and BIM specialist, and one of the co-founder of Agile BIM community. So today I'm the host, and Harvard is the guest. So welcome Harvard. I hope you're doing great.
Thank you. I'm feeling good, and thank you for inviting me to your show. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So today we're gonna talk about BIM. Gonna talk about data quality, automation, a bit of AI, and we're gonna talk about Anker. So you are the CEO of Anker, right? So can you maybe give us an overview of you, a presentation of yourself, please?
Absolutely. I'm originally a structural engineer. I got smitten by BIM almost 20 years ago, and I really loved starting to work with 3D, starting to work with parametric design, starting to work with databases. That was really motivating for me when I started doing that 20 years ago. And I developed a career in engineering as a BIM specialist, and then later as a design technology manager, I suppose, was my title in a few architectural firms. And then I started my first company 6 years ago, the Bad Monkeys company, that later rebranded to Reop. And through the work that we did at Reop with scripting and BIM automation, a lot of BIM automation on big projects, we learned that there was a big problem in the industry, and that problem is bad data. So we built Anker and took that as a separate company. So that's my second company as a founder. A little bit more than a year ago, and I'm actually not the CEO of Anker, but I'm the founder, and then I suppose my title is Chief Product Officer, whatever. But I do everything and go on podcasts like yours, for instance.
Yeah, sorry. So one of the co-founder, right? So the CPO, right? Yeah. Chief Product Officer, right?
Yeah, yeah. CPO, and then one of 5 co-founders, actually.
So were not good. So sorry for.
Oh, that's fine.
So you have talked about BIM automation, right?
Yeah.
You work at Bad Monkey and now at Anker. So can you give us, please, an overview of what automation and BIM currently and what's going on in the BIM automation for the moment?
Yeah. Where do I start? I think if you know the Bad Monkeys, and if people don't know the Bad Monkeys, it's a group of Dynamo experts, basically, that was created about 10 years ago by me and a few other people. And a lot of us were part of like an emerging visual programming community, very tightly connected with the Revit part of the BIM community. So a lot of Revit experts got tired of like punching numbers and text and data and moving things around with a mouse and keyboard manually in Revit. And it was, for some of us, a little bit of a high threshold to start programming properly, like textural programming. So I fell in love with visual programming with Dynamo, and then later Grasshopper for me. And probably not through a coincidence, but as a natural evolution of that, a lot of us started like trying to figure out how to process whatever script or application or custom workflow that we built, how to process it automatically. Because when you're interested in automation, when you're interested in doing something smarter today than you did before, then eventually, when you're going to get tired of opening Revit files and then running scripts manually. So I do that. I build one Revit script for a project, and then in that project, maybe there's 16 Revit files, and I have to open Revit 16 times and then run a script, which felt meaningless and pointless. So a lot of us got into like automation of processing of scripts. That's kind of like where I came into this. And then we built our own through actually one of my Bad Monkeys friends, Andreas Dichmann. He made, I think, the first like Dynamo automation package for Dynamo, and then more similar programs came on the market. There was and still is a free open source tool that a lot of people use to great pleasure. It's a little bit difficult to configure and set up sometimes, but it's totally doable for a normal guy like me, which is called Revit Batch Processor. That's on GitHub, and I use that a lot actually to start both, like to open any unlimited amount of Revit files and then do some kind of process, whether it was through an add-in or Python script or Dynamo script. And then, like, again, as a natural evolution of that, we started working with Anker, because it was always this threshold or always this bottleneck that we had to, like, physically open Revit, like physically, but like, open Revit files and then open Revit sessions, deal with licensing, deal with add-ins, deal with dependencies, and then open the Revit files and deal with work sets and design options and constraints and broken families and all that stuff that's inside of a gigantic database like that. And so that's one of the reasons why we decided to build Anker, to like try to prevent from having to do that. So you can run scripts and process data automatically outside of Revit in a web database. So this has just been my personal journey the last 10 years, from simple scripts to more automation of processes, and now like fully automated web data.
Okay, so first your experience was struggling with Revit, right? So working in daily basis with Revit and managing a lot of files. Okay, right. So so you have just talked previously about the quality of data. So was it also one of the things that you were struggling with, and one of the things that you have started Anker?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I want to say, and I really kind of like that, where this problem came to me, because I was always a Revit guy. I saw Revit, as I said, like 20 years ago almost, and I've been using it, and I'm still pretty good at it. And then in architecture, I was doing more like computational geometry and computational design and double curved facades and like experimental stuff. And then when I started my first company 6 years ago, the Bad Monkeys company, Reop, and I started more reacting to the market and to what the market needed. So I couldn't just choose to just do, or I suppose I could have, but I chose to like be agile with the market. So the market didn't ask for computational geometry, at least from me. The market actually asked for data processing. And that's so when you start your own company and you don't have a day job anymore, you start, saying yes to everyone, and everyone at that time, 4, 5, 6 years ago, were asking a lot of questions about how to make, especially on big projects, when you have large data sets, how to make them consistent. Because with ISO standards and digital deliverables becoming like more the norm, it actually becomes much more important that your BIM data, whether it's Revit files or ArchiCAD, IFC, Excel spreadsheets, whatever, that the integrity and consistency in these files are high. And the market came to me, I mean, companies and projects, and asked if I could, or we could build scripts and applications that did this. And then we did. We built buttons in Revit that like synchronized families across projects and so on. But then again, like I said before, you'd have to open a Revit file and click that button, close it, sync it, close it, next file, open, click that button, do some settings and configuration. So it doesn't really matter if you're doing that with a Dynamo script or a Python script or an add-in. You still have to open Revit and do that repetitive task. So this was completely what looks today like a very natural journey. It didn't then, but in hindsight, everything looks natural when it happens, and that's what happened to us. And a natural next step of that evolution has been to do that processing outside of native BIM and in an open web interface.
Awesome, wonderful, great. So, so you have talked about processes and So we have talked about data. So how do you see I would say the lean and the most lean maybe process for the moment to manage data? So maybe you can give us an overview of how Anker is managing that. So maybe you can give us an overview. Maybe you can share it with us a practice. So how do you see for the moment? How can we manage data with a BIM model from Revit or maybe ArchiCAD or any others BIM model tool? So can you give us please an overview of that?
I'll try. Maybe using a few like bullet points in my head, and I can show you how we've tried to solve this, or what our thinking has been with our suggestion to a solution to this problem. But I would say, like, maybe point number one is that we need to move from BIM we need to move from building information models to like project information models. That is pretty clear for me that that we need to start aggregating and having data in one place. So it cannot be split into separate files, which you have to do for geometry, because it's the only way to really make any BIM tool responsive, and performant. You can't put everything in a Revit file. You can't put everything in a Tekla model or an ArchiCAD model or Civil 3D or whatever tool you're using to create geometry. You can't put everything in one file. Just doesn't work. The people who have tried that, they are not with us anymore. So you have to split it up into separate models. Okay, that's step number one. And then to be able to create consistent data sets for big projects across multiple files, you need to move to the next iteration, the next step on the ladder, which whatever you want to call it. I play around with the term project information model. This is not something that I made up myself. I've heard it mentioned by a lot of people, but it's pretty descriptive for me that you have a place for your project data, where elements from BIM are being streamed, or continuously being streamed. So you add a wall, you sync your Revit file, and then wall appears in the project information model as a mirrored element of what you have in your building information model. So I said, like, that's number one. I think also number two, that it needs to be, this project information model needs to be in the web, so that everyone can access it. You don't need a Revit license. You don't need to be able to manage Solibri or Navisworks or whatever you do. You don't need, you can't have like 100 Excel spreadsheets lying around on servers or on ACC or wherever. You need a one central place where all the data that is coming from BIM and connected with BIM is being hosted in the project information model, and that needs to be on the web, where everyone can log on and see the data, use the data, extract the data, stream it through APIs to whatever dashboard or whatever solution they want to use that data downstream. So that's number two. And then number three, it needs to, like, everything needs to be able to be automated. Everything. Because of the nature of projects, everything changes all the time. Elements in BIM are moving around all the time. All the time you have a new file, or someone deletes a file, or someone has a BIM and they split it into two BIMs, and there's new walls and new doors and new windows and new elements all the time. So you cannot have a static workflow that requires a human being to go and click on buttons. Whenever there's a new wall, someone needs to click a button. Whenever there's a new window, someone needs to click a new button. That just does not, that's like impossible. And really, believe me, I've tried to be that person on a project. It's impossible. So I would have to work 24/7. I sit in the office all day long clicking that button whenever anyone adds a new element to a BIM. So the only way, like, maybe we'll never get to 100%, but the only way we can at least increase the data quality of BIM in across files to like an acceptable level is that it's always automated. So that's like, sometimes when I demo Anker to people who want to buy it, I show them how you are in Revit. You add a new wall, or you add a door, you add a window, new room, whatever. And then when you sync in Revit, you push that change to the central model. All the Anker automations run live all the time, and all those elements get updated data. That is the only way that you're going to be able to do this. So constant and continuous automation, both like imports and exports. We import IFC files from common data environments, and we stream Revit data in the background without anyone knowing it. So there's no import-export, but also the data processing, the verification, the quality assurance of the integrity of the data, but maybe most importantly, the creation of the data. That is the big problem in the industry today, I believe. Whether you're doing digital construction, or you're doing digital twins, or you're building AI applications, is still like the integrity and the quality of the data is the most important thing. And then, yeah, we've tried to solve that by making a project information model that's on the cloud that has constant automation.
Great. So first of all, it's to have like a project, switch from BIM to PIM. We can call it PIM, maybe project information management, and then let's automate that. Right. That's the workflow that you try to show. Yeah. Okay. Great. And practice. So maybe can you please give us an overview of how does it work in practice? Maybe you can share with us by you sharing a screen. And maybe with one use case or something like that. Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
And you have some question, but maybe we're gonna answer the question after. Maybe So.
Oh, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we can. No, yeah. So.
All right.
Great.
So this is good. I'm not going to do like a technical demo like I do in the meetings, but I'll just run through the user interface maybe and show a little bit what it looks like, what we have been thinking. So it's on the web. We have website with some information about what we're doing, and then I sign in. See here, username, password. I go into my organization. Actually, I can now. This is a new feature. I haven't seen this since last week. This is new. My team is building functionality faster than I can keep up with it, even as a chief product officer. So now I switch between organizations, and then I have. But in the hub, in the organization, this is my Anker organization. So if I work at company ABC, for instance, or something like that, I'd have a selection of projects here, and then people that I work with, some simple settings, and then these are my colleagues and guests or people that I collaborate with on an organizational level. I can review the Revit schema parameters. I can review the IFC schema from Building Smart, and then there's user guides and so on. But most of the fun, it happens inside the projects. So in this organization, I have 5 different projects. They're all like, a lot of them are like Norwegian projects. There's an infrastructure project here, and then there's a few architectural projects. This is Microsoft and PwC headquarters in Oslo. It doesn't look like this on the picture, but this is like just sample projects that I have set up. And then I have a little bit of a playground where I play around with concepts from the last project I worked on, which is the gigantic government quarters project in Oslo. And here I've connected my files. I have a dashboard on the front page that tells me something about the state of the data quality. And actually, this is the aggregated data quality in the entire project. So in this project, I have connected 3 Revit files and then a few Excel spreadsheets that I use as static data sets. And then I don't remember, I probably have like 2 or 3 different validations that are continuously running, and they aggregate into this graph that tells me a little bit about how we're doing in terms of integrity of the data. And then I have some simple property analysis, like fill rate on project. This 153% might be confusing people, but that's like both, we're counting both types and instances. And then as I said, no import export. we stream these files from common data environments. So I've set up my BIM 360. Actually, this is Autodesk Construction Cloud now. So I have common data environment on Autodesk Construction Cloud. And what I do is that I put my Revit file and my static data sets, the Excel spreadsheets, and my IFC files there in the folder organization. And then I monitor those folders for constant change, which is super cool, because that means that I can work in ACC, and I can upload a new IFC file, or I can upload an Excel spreadsheet to that folder, and then Anker is going to pick up that change automatically, pull it into Anker, and then execute a bunch of automations. So these are there's 3 Revit files and then 2 Excel files. And then we have tables that a lot of people use for quantity takeoffs, or like inspecting data on the micro and macro levels. A super simple thing, just like a schedule in Revit, where you have elements in rows and then properties in columns. They're actually much, much better than Revit schedules. First of all, because remember, you're in a project information model. You're looking at all the data in your entire project, whether it's coming from this Revit file or that Revit file or this Excel spreadsheet and so on, or this and that IFC file. But there's also like no limitation to the amount of data that you can look. In Revit, you have to choose whether you do a wall schedule, a room schedule, or a multi-category schedule. And in Anker, it's completely free and flexible. A lot of people that we work with, they stream these numbers, like the counts of the elements and the different data. They stream it through our API connections to Power BI dashboards to just like get quantity overview, or into their own systems. Contractors like that to stream these quantities from Anker into their systems to have like continuous understanding of how many this and how many that they have in a project. And then I jumped to validation. This was one of the first like functionality that people paid money for in Anker. It was the first thing that we built. Actually, not being able. Oh, there we are. It was a little bit of a lag. So a lot of building owners and contractors were having hard time quality assuring data that they received from engineers and architects. And because we had that data pipeline in the foundation, so no import export, it was always just streaming into Anker. It was pretty simple to build validation configuration, basically, I guess you can call it, where you have filters. Again, like you don't need to even know BIM in order to understand what to do here. It's like super simple web interface. It's a little bit tricky sometimes to explain to people the difference, for instance, between an instance and a type property in BIM, and maybe the IFC schema and all the, like, what's the difference between the fire rating of a wall and a window and stuff like this. But the user interface is pretty easy. And here our customers create these validations where they check the consistency and the integrity of data, and then stream these results out to Power BI dashboards and whatnot, or just share them with consultants and so on, or actually use it inside of Revit. So you have access to this exact same user interface inside of Revit, where you can color elements based on the quality assurance, or basically whether elements are failing or missing data or actually passing green. So this was actually something that was missing in the market for a lot of people, is to have like this constant quality assurance process in a configurable place on the web. But our biggest value proposition, what I'd say like 90% of the value and what everyone loves about Anker, is our ability to create data. So we ultimately want to make validation obsolete by, you don't need to validate because you're going to know that it's like the integrity of the data is good. And the only way we can do that is through creating like rules of data creation. And these rules, just like the validations, they consist of filters and then rules. This is a few simple rules that does different things, but they do data creation. You see, this ran actually 2 hours ago. And this is another room that copies data from rooms to furniture. This actually that we looked at before, it filters out certain Revit categories and then adds just simple project data to all the elements across the entire project. This is like contractual data, contract numbers for certain elements that are not furniture or entourage in these 2 different Revit files. And then we have work package information, you have rating, room data, all kinds of different rules that people set up. And it has to be rules because people can't in 2024 sit and punch data manually. Remember what I said before, there's a new wall, you click on that wall and then you start punching data on that wall. Or there's a new wall and you click that button in Revit to add this data. It can't happen. So we need rules, and people need to understand how to work with rules. And then you set up the rules, and in the end, we automate those rules with automation. And this is like the point number 3 that I mentioned before. If you remember, I set up these population rules to be run in a sequence, either every night at 8 on a day or an hour or a week, or when any of these files are saved. So this is actually like just sitting and listening to a Revit sync. So when I sit in my Revit file and I model a new wall, I click synchronize to central, that's finished. The Anker database updates. We sit and listen to that event in the link between ACC and Anker. And then when that happens and is complete, we run these like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 population or data creation rules in a sequence. And this is the only way you're going to make sure that at any point in time, all the elements have the data that they need and are always consistent and updated. Consistent because of rules and updated because of automation. I'm getting way too excited about this, but I hope you excuse me. And then you do the same thing for validations, and you can connect elements with Excel and so on with this relationship, but we can save that for another day. But that is like in essence how we have been having a laser focus on trying to understand how to solve this problem.
Perfect. Thank you for your presentation. So wonderful tool. So very impressive how you from the bullet list you have made it on tools and on button and reality. So and do you have maybe some data about that? So for example, percentage of improvement some projects. So what's your clients are involving in their project? So
well, it's very difficult actually to do general answer on that, because it really depends a lot on projects and the composition of people and companies in these projects. And we do have clients in both. The building owners, our 2 first clients were building owners, and then we have contractors who use it for quality assurance and then quantity takeoffs and so on. And then we have a lot of engineers and architects who use it for data creation, and they all have different value proposition from this. But it's well, I can maybe one example. I don't have numbers in this context, but the state building owner of Norway have on a Building Smart seminar about a year ago said that for the first time in history, 4 years after they released their first BIM requirements, for the first time in history, actually are getting data quality on their requirements. So it took 4 years for them to get to that point, and I'm very proud that actually it wasn't the only differentiator, but it was actually like maybe the last piece of the puzzle was a cloud platform like this. That's on the Viking Age Museum in Oslo with engineers, multi-consult, architects, art, and then contractors, AF Group, and then the building owner. And when the building owner goes to a Building Smart event and says that, okay, this is the first time that we're able to trust the data that's going between stakeholders in the project, then I think that's like, I was in the room that day and I was smiling. So that's cool.
Great. We have some questions in the comments. So one from Mela Tubina. I hope I've spelled it good. The automation are triggered by the synchronization with the cloud, right? Okay, so we're talking about cloud. So what's your answer for that?
Yes. But for Revit, it's a little bit special because the cloud ACC doesn't actually pick up on the Revit sync. The ACC, I think it picks up on the Revit publishing. So if you publish a Revit file on ACC, we're going to listen to that if you monitor that folder with the ACC connection between Anker and ACC. How I actually, we'll probably get to that at some point, but how I do the how I can listen to the Revit sync is because there's a tiny add-in installed in my Revit application. So when I sit inside of Revit and I sync, that triggers the automation because I have an add-in installed in the. You cannot actually, at least to my knowledge, do that with ACC today. But with the IFC and with Excel and with publishing of Revit files, that is the trigger that runs the automations.
Great, thank you. We have a second question from Anonymous. Great. So the question is, if any changes are made on Revit, will Anker notify the change?
Yes.
Anker, sorry. I think you made. Okay, so you have like notification option, or?
We don't have notifications. This is something that we're actually like talking about a lot because we want to do that. You imagine that you want a Slack message or something on Teams or maybe email based on certain conditions. And we don't have that today, but it's definitely something that we are wanting to have. But the human beings are not getting notified today. Well, you see dashboards and graphs and tables updating, and it's all live. So in that, if you're asking if Anker is notified by the change in Revit, that's certainly the case. I add a new wall in Revit, I synchronize with Central. Anker is always one-to-one with what Revit has. So Anker is notified, but the human beings not directly, but indirectly, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you. So now we can talk maybe about a little bit about AI. So I know that's the
yay.
So the tricky subject. So AI is getting. I mean, in the IC industry, we see a lot of new tools, a new approach with AI. So I know that we had this conversation during the week about AI. But can you maybe, with your practice, because you are in Bad Monkey and you are still with Anker, so what's your point of view of AI for the moment in the RC industry in general, and then what's your point of view in the data quality in the RC industry? So can you give us an overview of those two subjects, please?
Absolutely. I'm humble and mindful that I am by no means an expert on AI. I would say probably like the man on the street. I use ChatGPT for for simple things, and then I think there's a lot of people who are much more scholared and both in practice and academics know much more about AI than I do. But from what I hear from the people that I talk with in the market, a big challenge or a big problem to overcome for AI to be massively adopted in our core activities, at least based on what our core activities today are, which is largely still BIM. A lot of us are spending a lot of time doing BIM in our work to collaborate with other people, to design, to document, and so on. And it's nice with images and text and stuff like that. Rendering has caught wind very early, and of course all the text generated AI. But until we can actually apply kind of general intelligence to our core operations, we're like scratching the surface. And I think for that to happen, we need to solve data quality. I think that bad data into any AI any application at all, whether it's an AI application or a non-AI application, is going to be shit in, shit out, like garbage in, garbage out. Unless, of course, you, like we talked about earlier, Bilal, unless you say that you deploy AI to actually fix the data. So if the outcome of an AI application is actually good data, then that could be interesting, that you eat bad data and you produce good data. But a lot of other applications, both AI and non-AI, are going to have trouble with the data quality in BIM because of basically how BIM was thought about in the beginning. You have a family environment in Revit where everyone can create their own families. You have like completely freedom to rename a parameter, actually not a shared parameter, but But to, you know, punch data, if you want to type a wall name, you can do that. And any user in Revit, that's not blocked for people. You know, any single human being with a Revit license can rename that wall. And when they do, that can be a problem for any application that's going to use that data. And that is kind of like, remember what I said in the beginning, that I was a computational geometry guy, and then I ended up being a data guy through the market demands. And the market has started demanding good data. The contractors and the owners, they want the BIM data that is being produced. And also architects and engineers want to use that data that they are producing in projects for intelligent decision, for project managers to understand what's going on, and for themselves actually to work smarter. So everyone wants the data from BIM, but everyone is having problems with its integrity, and that is what we have to solve, I suppose, first. At least this is my reflection on this matter, and I'm very excited about the possibilities that lie ahead of us for both AI applications and non-AI applications to be massively efficient once we have good data. And this is, you know, that is my journey. That is our journey. We're trying to do the stair on the right sequence. Okay, first we have a data pipeline, then we have verification, then we have data creation. And then once you have established good data, you can start building new applications that can actually be valuable because they use good data. So, and that goes for both AI and non-AI applications. And then we have some ideas for things that we want to do with AI inside of Anker, but I'm also being very careful that we approach this question in the right way. And I love this mantra in startups that founders and people who start companies, they need to obsess about problems and not solutions. Or I need to be interested in the solution. The solution I showed you, our proposed solution in Anker, but I need to obsess about the problem. And that has to come first before I think about the solution. First, understand the problem, then think about the solution. And I feel that the market, in a lot of ways, you know, we're human beings and we get excited about new things, and there's a certain hype for sure about AI. I just came from London this morning from a conference, and we were talking a lot about the AI hype, and it's real and it does exist. But we have to first think, what problems do we want to solve? But not only that, of course, it doesn't really help if you're only thinking about the problem and you don't have any idea about a solution. You have to have both. Okay, so that's interesting with AI. I think today is that there's more mindfulness, or how do you say? There's more attention to AI. So people are starting to understand how it works and what it can do and what it can't do. But then we have to identify the right problems to apply to it.
Great, thank you, and welcome. Yeah, we hear you, Sebastian, which is one of the co-founders of the Agile BIM community. Welcome, Sebastian.
Thank you. I have a question about AI because I'm doing some courses about AI, so I study the subject. But you say that the biggest problem for data management is the quality of data. So you wait for the quality to be okay to start starting to think about AI. But don't you think that AI could help fix this data problem? Because if you wait for the human to be to be doing the good things, I think you will wait a long time, no?
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, I would just mention what I just talked about, is that actually I need to obsess about the problem first, and then not see, okay, I have AI, what can I do with it? Oh, maybe I can fix the problems. I need to see, I want to fix the problems. What is the best technical solution for fixing the problem? Oh, maybe AI is that. Or maybe it's something else. It could be just statistics or history, or so there's a lot of interesting potential solutions to the fixing of data, and that's certainly let's just agree that we need to fix the data, and then maybe AI is one way that we can do that.
And can you tell us a practical example of bad data? that you want to fix, for example?
That might be a little bit embarrassing, but I see so much weird formatting of text every day.
Sorry, but Sebastian, I think you have a problem with your micro. I think it makes some noise. I think, yeah, great, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Bilal. That actually helped. I'm sorry, Sebastian, but I'll try to answer your question. We have this, I don't know if this is like common practice across the globe, but we have this property that is becoming really, really important for a lot of digital construction projects in Northern Europe. It's called the Model Maturity Index, the MMI property. It's kind of like an LOD or LOI property. Maybe it's the same, I don't know. But it's a simple 3-digit number that you use to put this number on elements, and by doing that you tell people downstream what they can do with this element. Okay, if it's a number 100, it's very early, you can't really do it, use it. If it's 200, you get the idea. If it's 400, actually it's constructed. If it's 300, it's ready for construction, and so on. So it's like a super simple number that you use to tell someone about the state of this element. Kind of like, we used to before have like schematic drawings and then detailed drawings. Of course, that's the same concept. This is like ready for construction. This is just ideas. And then when I say people who need to add this number to elements in today, they use like all kinds of different formatting. And sometimes they type MMI space 400. Sometimes they spell small letters MMI space 400. Sometimes MMI 400 with no space. And sometimes just like random numbers like 999 or XXX or whatever. And this is like, and that's why I say it's almost embarrassing, because you wouldn't really, when I explain this problem to people outside of the building industry, that is like the issues we're having, I feel almost a little bit embarrassed, because it shouldn't be like that, but it is. So at the most basic level, we need to just make sure that, okay, the numbers you're using for the model maturity index or any other like classification systems or contract numbers or whatever, that is like just within the allowed values in the right formatting.
But yeah, because normally this type of option should be handled as a list of options in the software, and it is handled as a free text. So because of that, you could have.
Yeah. So, but this is maybe on one scale of the problem. This is in the most basic way, and then you have on the other scale more complex systems like classification systems that people spend a lot of time understanding and learning and then implementing into projects. So it's the whole range.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Go ahead.
No, I have another question, because I talked about data analysis thanks to ChatGPT and AI using some BIM model data. And I'm not an expert in BIM, so I don't know exactly which is the best way to export data from Revit. Your software is one of the solution, a new solution, but probably it's a good way to export data. But do you know if with your software it's possible to export to other tool, either manually or automatically with an API to continue the processing of data in other tools?
Automatic through an API. That's totally what we want to do. Like, there should be no export import. It should all be just data in a stream, and that is totally what we are aiming to do. So if we don't, so we have an API endpoint for both validation results and also like elements and properties and element counts and property values through the tables, and that should give you a pretty good feed of live data from, as you saw with our common data environment connection, like a potentially unlimited amount of BIM models, both open BIM models and closed BIM models. So our aim is to, like, as I said before in the podcast, like, number one, make it openly available for a lot of people. It's been a problem for a long time that BIM data has been closed for for only people who learned how to operate BIM, and that needs to change.
Great, thank you. So we have a question from Gabriele Dandi from Italia, from Italy. So welcome, first of all, Gabriele. Hope you're doing well. Do you think that AI will be used in the future also to solve issues about modeling and, for example, clash detection and solving? So what's your point of view for clash detection? And I think it's already the case, right? We have some projects that use AI to.
I'll be honest with you about this. Probably yes, because I think it's going to be very important for human beings to use AI for all the work that we don't want to do. And I think it's going to be very important for us to not do AI on the work that we want to do. And I love this quote. I heard it again on the conference in London this week, and I love it. I'm going to make a poster on my wall about it. Is that I don't want my AI to write music and paint pictures and write poetry. I want the AI to do the work that I don't want to do. And this is what I think. Although I'm not going to be able to answer your specific question about class detection, I would say that everything that you don't want to pay a human being to do, that can be automated with a machine, AI should absolutely do. But I am very careful with thinking that I want AI to design the room I'm going to sleep in. Maybe I want a human being to do that, because a human being would feel what I feel, would know what I feel when I wake up in the morning, when I look out the window, what I want to see, what I want to feel, and what kind of music triggers my feelings. So this is something, I don't know, I'd say I feel strongly about, and I think it's going to be important for us, because we don't really want a future, do we, where we sit and like punch data with our fingers at work, and then AI does the design. I want it the other way around. That actually AI does class detection, and then we do design.
About clash detection, I followed a thread on LinkedIn. Because one problem for clash detection is to detect if the clash is really a clash and so on. So AI maybe can understand with a kind of fuzzy logic if it is really a clash or not. And after, people wanted to go a bit further than the AI proposed a fix about the point. If there is one tube and one wall and something conflicting, to propose some solution already. So I think it's a very I would not like to have this job to do the clash detection report. So if it can help, yeah, it will be really a game changer, I think, for BIM coordinators.
Last year, yeah, go ahead, please. Sorry.
No, I was just going to totally support that, Sebastian, because we all heard about the stories of 10,000 clashes in a project, and then you spend 99% of the time, reviewing the clashes that are not really clashes, and maybe you miss the one that actually important that costs money, and then but that's like totally AI or statistics or reviewing data over longer periods of time could be a very interesting use case. Yeah.
So last year I talked with a startup from Spain, I think from Barcelona, and they were doing a job like that. I think their job was, or their solution provided was to it's like a computer vision, right? So basically they do the scan, and with the scan and the model, they do the clash. So, and they see the differences between the model and the site construction. So with computer vision, so that they had some camera on site. So I mean, this kind of solution are already on the market. I don't remember the name, sorry, but if I remember good, it was from Spain, from Barcelona. So it was very good application on cloud, and so you can control with all the construction site and the clash with the models, and so maybe for Gabriele, you can maybe check on Google and find it.
It's so cool that there's so many new companies and so many new products in the industry today. It's completely different from 10 years ago. That is so cool.
Yeah, so basically, the prop tech and the construct tech is one of the industry where there is for the moment the most in comparison with other industries. So the most startup on the market for the moment. So one of the most new starter on the market. So yeah, from 10 years ago, it's a huge changement. So I hope they will survive. That's the question. So it's all about surviving. Also,
we'll see. Maybe, for sure, not all of us, but some will, and I'm really curious to see if everyone will get purchased by big companies, or if it's or we're actually seeing a movement of smaller organizations and startups. That will be interesting to see.
Yeah, and there is also the big question about the alternative of Revit and ArchiCAD, and mainly about Revit. There is a new solution from Belgium for the man, Conic. They're in London. I think maybe you have heard of that.
Yeah.
We have there is also Arcool from so the Irish guy. So yeah, there is a lot of new startup and new companies. So we hope that they will survive and give us alternative to the situation. So we have a remark from Giros. So Giros, if you want to talk more about what you're doing or what Perkins and Will are doing, you can maybe contact me on LinkedIn. It would be great to talk and maybe organize an event to talk about what Perkins and Will are doing with the AI assistants. So feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn, please. I don't know if we have other questions. Maybe Sebastian, do you have any others? Any other question?
Yes, maybe a question about the market of AOC software. Because yes, there is many new software that are quite interesting, and it's an interesting period because we have at the same time AI, but also at the same time open source possibility to do the kind of viewer or equivalent to Revit, but with open source libraries. So this is quite fun, and I'm playing with it. But when I talk to architect, when I talk to AOC professional, always the response is nearly the same. We only use Revit, we only use Microsoft, and it's kind of boring. So I don't know who is buying this new software. Is it hard for you to convince people to use a new tool?
Oh man, you give me goosebumps. It's extremely difficult. It is so time consuming. It's what I do like 90% of my week, my whole year. I spend most of my time explaining the value proposition, getting people excited, opening their minds to working differently. You know, a lot of people are locked in. Yeah, I learned the tool. I'm going to be the Solibri expert of my company, and I'm going to do, you know, that's going to be my job. And then they hold on to that. And so it's so difficult. And it's like a battle. And I feel I like it. I love it. I did it like my whole professional life was what I did with Revit back in the day, 20 years ago, when no one was using Revit. Everyone was using AutoCAD, and I was trying to convince them to work smarter and differently. So I like this part of the job, but it's so difficult. And it's a crazy paradox. That's a crazy paradox in the industry today, that everyone is looking for a Revit killer. Everyone is looking for an alternative to all the big corp, you know, massively expensive, shitty license agreements. You know, my hands are completely tied. All the AEC firms are saying the same thing, but then when I come with a new product as a startup, and it's, you know, nah. So come on, you know, put your money where your mouth is. I'd say, like, invest in startups is probably the smartest thing you can do as a company in the AC industry today. And I don't say that to sell more Anker. I just really believe it to be true for everyone.
And do you think it's more the big companies, architecture companies, or smaller one, or younger people? Is there a typology of companies that are more open to new tool or to discoveries?
Yeah, I without getting to fundamental, maybe I would say, like, my general impression is that, of course, the bigger the company, the slower the process, and as a startup, you have limited amount of time you can use on the sales process. So you know, and there's going to be more requirements on security and you know, data privacy and like everything. And then the smaller companies, they move like crazy fast. I sold Anker to a company in Iceland with in 30 minutes a few weeks ago. And that was very very forward leaning and cool BIM consultancy firm in Iceland, and as a stark contrast to the big corporations that we're also talking to, and so that certainly seems to be the case.
Okay, great.
Great. So I think we are near to the 1 hour episode. I think we can maybe finish this episode. So I would like to thank you, Havard, for being the guest and sharing with us all this knowledge and all you experience in the RC industry. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Sebastian, also for your questions. Thank you, all of you. So if you want to participate to be one of our guests, so just feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn, and let's talk about that. And thank you for the chats, for being always active and ask questions. And I hope that Havard, you will be on the pioneers of the IC industry, changer and thinkers, and hope that Anker will survive and be one of the Revit killer and or architect.
I think it's complementary to the Anker.
Yeah, sure. So so maybe if I'll give you the last minute or maybe the last second to
I just want to add something about the channel, because here we are on a channel named Future Architecture, and we talk, we do some interview like this with some AOC tech founder, and we will have more interview in the next weeks. For example, Snaptrude in the July, which is one of the Revit potential Revit killer. And so if you are interested in that topic, please subscribe to the channel to be aware of new video. Just what I wanted to add.
Of course, share, like on the button, and
yeah, please.
And so, and thank you for being here. So thank you. I think we can finish the event. So thank you, Havard, and thank you, Sebastian. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you.